Hello and welcome to the LoveThat podcast. I'm Mark, and here with me are my colleagues Charlie and Marcio.
Hi.
Hello.
This podcast is about all things creative.
Specifically the subjects of design, digital and video.
With other stuff thrown into the mix. As well as being able to listen to us, you'll also be able to see us and what we're getting up to on our YouTube channel.
We're currently on our podcast set, which has kindly been provided to us by the University of Portsmouth.
With a big thanks to the CCI department who are helping us to film and record this series.
So in today's episode we have a special guest with us. We have Hel Reynolds from Comms Creatives. Hel, do you mind giving us a bit of an introduction about yourself?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm Hal Reynolds. I run Comms Creatives, which is an online business that helps people to use social media more effectively and creatively. So we tend to work with people who work in comms and marketing teams, and in anything from kind of really straight-laced corporates to little charities and all sorts of different organizations, really. And in real life, I never normally mention this in an intro, but in real life, I'm about 6 foot tall. So I'm probably about the size that I look on that screen.
Is that as tall as you, Mark?
I'm 6'4", so a little bit shorter.
Yeah. You'll tower me anyway. Everyone towers me, so it's fine.
We'd have no hope, would
we? Cool.
So today, Hel, we wanted to talk about the power of authenticity and basically how to create authentic and original content, whether that's across what we do, digital design and video, or what you're an expert in, social media. So I guess from our point of view, how can you create authentic content that really stands out from the crowd, that kind of puts you above your competitors?
Well, I come at this from quite a few angles. So I'm running Comms Creatives, and I think people would probably say one of the things I'd say around our content as a business is that it's authentic, but I also help others to do it as well. And for me, defining what authentic means is important when I'm describing how to be authentic. And for me, it's about no pretense. So you're trying to really come across as something that people can connect with because they believe in it. And a fundamental part of this is about accepting some of the things that we pretend that nobody believes as comms and marketing professionals. So, for instance, on Twitter, let's say you send a tweet out and there's no humanity to it. You don't know who's writing it. There's no I's or we's. It's just kind of, it feels like it's been through a zillion policy team members and, you know, or it looks like an advert. And I think sometimes a real easy way to create content that feels authentic is to kind of break that fourth wall that happens when you're always marketing and creating content that doesn't have a person behind it. That is, you're supposed to just accept that a logo is speaking. And so you'll see this with brands like Innocent. Recently, Innocent had this kind of little viral tweet moment where someone had said, "Oh, our manager has accidentally uploaded his photo thinking that this account was his." And people just absolutely loved it, this idea that a real person is running the Innocent account. And there's loads of examples of this where if you want to be authentic, you've got to, as professional communicators, accept that you are there to talk to people and let people in and let them see that it's a real person talking, not a weird idea that it's just this kind of voice of God coming through.
I love that. I remember seeing on, I just said I love that. I just remember seeing on sports streams, especially when they try to update you about a match or something like that, they actually give they note when they pass the pattern to someone else. They say, okay, that's me signing it off, and pass it to someone else, and they interact almost between each other in the same account. And I think the reaction to it, oh yeah, he was great, or he was funny, or he's off now to celebrate his birthday. And the people just pile up, oh, happy birthday, and they just interact more just by knowing that he's a real person. And on the next day when he comes back, they'll know about him a little bit more, and that the fact that he's managing the BBC Sports account is almost just part of it. It's not the BBC logo that is talking, but it's that person, which is quite interesting. I haven't noticed. So do you think it will be good to acknowledge that interaction and acknowledge that people that is behind it, and how it can go those weekends take over by Mark, or we can take over by someone else in the team, and just to see the different content that they will publish or create during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. It's not the only way to do it, but it's one of the ways that shows people that they are interacting on social media, which has got the word social in it, with another person. Because otherwise, it's just pushing out adverts, and it's got no, conversational side to it. And again, authenticity is about genuine conversation. It's not about like genuine leaflets or adverts. So it has to feel like it's come from a person.
That's a really valid point. And even if you guys think about when we started to talk about our podcast, very early on we said we wanted to film it so that people could see who it was doing the talking. So that you almost, in some ways, some elements of what we do, you do that subconsciously, because of a lot of creativity comes from passion, and it comes from what we love or what we don't love. But it's those more strategic elements where, like Hel says, that it can get lost with just trying to sell or trying to advertise or promote. And so, Hel, what are one of the key fundamentals of being able to balance that commercial objective with that authenticity?
I think some of it is about the courage of the team who are tactically delivering it. So I'll give you an example of this back from my old career. So back in the day, I used to work for a local council doing their social media. And if someone shared a lovely picture of like a sunset going down over Abergavenny, which was one of the towns that this council served, I would share it and say, wow, what a lush image that is. Well, what a lush picture. And I'd use this kind of local language, because in South Wales, everything's lush. But I used to get people coming in the door going, I don't think that's really appropriate that you're using this casual tone on our social channels. I'd have to really push back and kind of go, well, actually, I think it's completely appropriate that it looks like a council is made up of humans and cares about what people are sharing and shows a bit of personality, because that helps us with trust, and trust helps us to deliver services. And, you'd have to go through all these flipping conversations just for writing a tweet that said lush in it. But you have to really believe in it and strategically be clear on the fact that it's not just fun. I'm not doing it to be fluffy or gentle. I'm doing it because it matters and it gives us better results. So I think really the key is getting buy-in, on one hand, but I used to always, and I work with organisations all the time and comms teams who consistently get buy-in, write great strategies, and they still have to put up with people coming in the door and whinging, saying they don't like it or they don't get it. And actually, I don't care if you like it, our audience likes it. That's what we're doing it for.
And that's a really good lead-in into authentic content, actually, because it's kind of, you have two extremes, don't you? You have those social contents or those social channels for brands where they really try too hard to be in with the audience, or the cool kids, and then you have the ones that are very rigid and uptight. And where we're trying to be is in that sweet spot of authenticity, of we're getting our commercial objectives or our behavioural change objectives out there, but we are resonating with the audience without it coming across as ingenuine. Like there's that great Steve Buscemi meme, like is it like what's up my kids or something?
Yeah.
It goes backwards. We'll make sure we put it in post so that you guys can see it, but it's a really good example. And we can all probably think of brands or examples of social posts where you're like, oh, that missed the mark in terms of the tone that it's come across in, because it's just completely out of whack with the brand's personality. So I guess the next question from me, Hal, is how do you help to build that more personal tone within a brand, especially in the corporate environment where we're not always known necessarily as being not human, but a little bit more formal and reserved, I guess is a good way of putting it.
I think the first thing is to just remember a basic fundamental, and that is comms is not sales. So regardless of what kind of organisation you're promoting, it's not about just telling people what they should buy or telling them what messages they need to know about. It's brand. What we're talking about is brand. So looking at the brand values and really being honest about what that represents when it comes to a social media plan or how you're going to be on social media. So one of the key things that comes to mind is a lot of housing associations that we've worked with. They've got these list of values, and it'll often be things like putting residents at the centre of our work or building communities. It's not about bricks, it's about people, all of these things. And then you look at their Facebook page and they don't talk to anyone. When someone leaves a comment on their page, it just gets ignored. And to me, authenticity is about looking at those values and trying to embody them, not telling people that they're at the centre of your policy, but making them the centre of what you do and actually having conversations to them, with them about things that they care about. And it's often that our brand is about what you do, it's not about what you say. And I think that's where you can suddenly start to kind of go, right, we've got a case now to say that perhaps we should do a fun Friday post about a topic that we know our audience wants to talk about, to ease ourselves into this idea that it's about conversation, it's not about promoting things and telling people what to do.
And it kind of leads on to what I wanted to talk about in trends. So where do you stand with how you would get involved in certain trends on social? So for instance,
right time?
For instance, like recently there was a big thing going around about a picture, and you could see it either as a donkey or a seal or a mermaid. Yeah. Is it right to get involved in this conversation from your account?
Is it a fun thing to do? How do you guide brands into understanding when they should jump onto a trend and when they just really should leave it alone?
I tend to start with getting to know your audience. So I can't think of many brands that would really have desperately needed to get on that old seal kind of thing that was going about last week. You don't have to get involved in trends. They're an added extra. So it's about really understanding your audience. Is there a way that you can tie in some relevant conversation that your audience wants to have, but is also to do with what you do as a brand? Another trend I can think of recently is the Wordle thing. So I saw quite a few brands doing various versions of Wordle sharing, pretending that they're sharing their Wordle score image, but it's actually something else. And some of them got it really tragically wrong, and some of them did it really well. I saw a couple of charities and some organisations do it quite well. And the ones that got it wrong, obviously had never played Wordle, because they were making an image that had letters in it that wouldn't make sense if it was a game, if you know what I mean. It's difficult to describe it without showing you, but if you're going to jump on a trend, you need to really deeply understand what you're taking part in. Otherwise, it just, it looks a bit trendy vicar.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And in terms of your personal experience, where do you get your inspiration from when it comes to the social aspect of posting? Do you have a certain kind of work kind of?
Yeah, what's your process, Hal? How do you help your clients, and even for you with Comms Creative? What's your process for deciding what's important to discuss? How to get your clients to communicate and think of content in a different way?
One thing that, I mean, I do this and I get all our students to do this as well. I tend to tell everyone to be a collector of ideas. So I have a zillion different ways of collecting ideas, but my eyes are open to things that I think are interesting. And for me, I advise this with students. If you see something on social media that really catches your eye and you think that's neat, that's cool, that's interesting, whatever, you don't have to do anything with it now, but find a way to collect it somewhere. So I've got an email address that I send myself interesting things, and I'll put the subject title of a couple of keywords that'll help me find that, so that when I'm in need of some inspiration, I'll go to that email account and just see what's in there. And, you know, I know that it doesn't matter if I never do anything with it, but there is a whole collection of ideas in there that will come in handy later. And I don't think it's good to copy other people, but I do think it's good to steal from them and, you know, steal formats, steal a way of thinking and completely tweak it so it works for you and your audience. I often steal different ideas, and they don't have to be like, it's not copying, you know, like I'll listen to a podcast and someone will talk about a topic and I'll think, actually, I think there's an interesting version of that conversation that we could have about social media, even though they weren't talking about social media. So I'm like a magpie for ideas, and I encourage people to get back in touch with what makes them really interested in the world and start thinking back then when they are working on a campaign or where they need something to kind of think, well, how can we use those ideas in a way that will work for us?
Great. I want to move away from like the social side of things, and now talk about just us as people and how we can come across as being ourselves and authentic. And a big thing that I've struggled with in the past is something called Imposter Syndrome. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it as well, but obviously where you're in a certain role and you kind of talk yourself out of your experience and you belittle yourself in a way that you're not good enough for this job, even though you are, and you're in that spot for a reason. I mean, have you ever experienced that, Hel?
I have experienced it in my career. I experience it a lot less now that I am doing work where I can be myself. Back in the day when I used to work, you know, I'd be going for heads of comms jobs and things like that, and I'd go for an interview and I was very aware that I had to not be myself. So I would be wearing clothes I wouldn't normally wear. Like at the moment I'm wearing like a duffel t-shirt, but I'd be wearing like a suit or whatever. I'd go into the interview. I'd feel like I had to use certain terminology that I wouldn't use in normal life. And, you know, my mum would always say before I go to an interview, she'd be like, don't tell any jokes. Do not crack. Because I had to
not to swear.
Yeah, exactly. Or don't swear if you're a swearer. And, you know, I can kind of suppress the swearing, but I can't suppress the dad joke or the silly point of view thing. And I didn't realise this through all the years of feeling a bit impostery in that way, that I just felt like I just had to try and be like a proper grown-up person. But I have ADHD, which was undiagnosed up until last year. And it means that it means all sorts of positive, creative things, but it also meant that I kind of always felt a little bit like an outsider, even as a kid. I felt like I knew I was a bit different. So that's probably meant that I've got the benefit of not feeling imposter syndrome, because I'm used to feeling like an imposter in every area of my life, I guess. And I'm not afraid of that. I quite like being a bit different.
Me too.
Yeah, I think recently that has started to get a little bit more recognition and value, that everyone is different, and especially mentally. It's all neurodivergent.
Neurodivergence, yes.
Exactly. So even the imposter syndrome term, I think, is quite recent. Like, I don't remember that when I was at uni. I was at school.
No, there was nothing like that when I was at uni.
But just getting out of uni and going to your first job, you feel that immediately. I felt that immediately when you go into your first job, that because you lack that validation, and you lack that exposure to other people in the same industry or in the same kind of role. That just now, when with social media, with having this conversation with someone like Hel or with you guys as well, is that then you're starting to realize this is my people as well. I fit in here. I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy to how I develop as a professional, as personally as well.
I think one of the really important things, and especially for us as senior members of our team, is that our success is based on how we're able to collaborate with all different types of people and clients and businesses, and that means that we do sometimes have to adapt and do things slightly differently, but at the end of the day as creatives, you cannot sell your passion for something without being yourself. I personally can't.
You can't fake it for too long. You can't keep it. You can't. Yes.
And I think it's important, like you said, like we have our people, and you will always have different groups. Whether it's the video guys are going to talk about certain things that the design guys won't, or the digital guys won't, or the same with Hel and her clients and working in social. But as long as you have that common acceptance of all your differences, and you embrace everybody in a way that allows people to feel themselves and feel safe without harming each other, I think that's really important for teamwork. And I think with social media is that sometimes that gets lost, is that someone can get very, very focused on a goal or an objective and pushing it out and not thinking about how that resonates with their wider audience, because an audience is always made up of lots of different demographics. You may have a particular core target, but if you try too hard for one particular element of that audience, you're going to alienate other people that could be very, very valuable and are valuable to your business and what you're trying to do.
I'm afraid we've come to the end of
keep on
our
with this
session.
one.
I know, it's really good. And Hel, I really appreciate you joining us
Yes.
today.
Yeah, thank you
much.
so much,
It's been
Hel.
really
It's been
good.
great. Really good.
Love being part of it.
Before we go, I just want to help you plug your business. So, Comms Creative, could you tell us the best way to get in touch with yourself if you're interested in working together?
Or social medias. Yep.
Yeah, lovely. So if you come and look at our website, it's commscreatives.com. Most people forget the S, it's Comms Creatives, because it's all about us together, working together. And yeah, there's we've got the social media expert course coming up. There's lots of little courses coming up as well. People want to have a look there. Find us on Instagram. My sister and business partner Leslie runs our Instagram account at Comms Creatives. We're on Twitter at Comms Creatives. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn. We're social media people, so we're on all the places. Come and find me as well at Hel Reynolds on all of those places as well, and you'll see some silly doodles and all sorts of fun stuff, and some useful there too.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Hel.
that, Hel.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for listening and watching us today on this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. If you want to join in the conversation, like always, go in the comment section below, or our email, Marcio.
hello@lovethat.co.uk.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks again, and thanks again, Hel, and see you all later.
Bye.
Bye.